Joe Rogan just destroyed Gavin Newsom's political career in the most brutal way possible. The California governor is having a complete public meltdown right now because Joe refused to have him on the podcast, and what happened next is absolutely insane. Instead of moving on like a normal person, Gavin started begging and groveling for an invitation, and when that pathetic display didn't work, he completely lost it and launched into childish attacks that backfired spectacularly. Before we get into this train wreck, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you never miss when politicians completely humiliate themselves like this. The desperate begging begins. Gavin Newsom has now publicly begged Joe Rogan for a podcast invitation at least 7 different times across multiple platforms, and each attempt gets more embarrassing than the last. He started by casually mentioning it in interviews, then moved to direct call-outs on social media. And now he's literally complaining about it during official press conferences when he should be talking about actual state business. The governor of the 5th largest economy in the world is spending taxpayer time whining about not getting a podcast invitation. And his staff is actually being paid to craft these desperate social media posts. What makes this even more pathetic is that Newsom keeps saying, "Joe won't have me on. He only has people who attack me," while simultaneously admitting he goes on right-wing shows all the time, completely contradicting his own victim narrative. The guy can't even keep his story straight for more than 30 seconds. And this is exactly why Joe wants nothing to do with him. Joe's brutal takedown. Joe Rogan didn't just decline Gavin's invitation. He went on his podcast and systematically destroyed every single talking point Gavin uses to defend his California record. When Gavin posted that California is the 4th largest economy with the most Fortune 500 companies, Joe responded with the most obvious truth that nobody in mainstream media will say California had all of that decades before Gavin ever stepped into office. The state's success comes from perfect weather, existing infrastructure, Silicon Valley, that was built in the 1970s and 1980s, and Hollywood that was established over a century ago, none of which has anything to do with Gavin Newsom's policies. Joe pointed out that under Gavin's leadership, California has the highest unemployment rate in the nation at 5.3%, compared to the national average of 4.1%. And somehow, Gavin wants credit for the economy. Even more damning, Joe brought up how Los Angeles lost over 120,000 residents in just 2 years, and San Francisco lost 65,000 residents in the same period, all fleeing Gavin's disastrous policies. But Gavin's response to this factual beatdown revealed something even more disturbing about his character: the petty meltdown. Instead of addressing any of Joe's legitimate criticisms, Gavin's team responded by posting a photoshopped image of Joe Rogan as a tiny, snack-sized figure with the caption, "Little Joe can't handle full-size debates." This is the official communication strategy of California's governor. Middle school playground insults and body shaming someone who's 5'8". Gavin's social media team, who are paid 6-figure salaries with taxpayer money, spent their time creating memes to mock a podcaster's height, instead of fixing the 186,000 homeless people living on California streets. What's even more telling is that Gavin personally approved this strategy, as his team later confirmed he's directly involved in his social media presence and signs off on major posts. This is a man who claims Trump is unprofessional and childish, then turns around and uses the exact same tactics, but somehow thinks it's justified when he does it. The hypocrisy reached nuclear levels when his spokesperson said they were just holding up a mirror to MAGA tactics, as if copying the behavior you claim to despise makes you the good guy. But this childish meltdown is just scratching the surface of why Joe refuses to platform Gavin's lies. The California disaster. California is currently spending $24 billion per year on homelessness, which breaks down to roughly $130,000 per homeless person annually. Yet, the homeless population has increased by 40% in the last 6 years under Gavin's watch. To put that in perspective, you could literally give every homeless person in California $130,000 in cash, and it would cost the same as Gavin's current failed programs. But instead, that money disappears into a black hole of NGOs and consultants who are getting rich off human misery. The state's high-speed rail project, which Gavin championed and still defends, has burned through $11 billion and hasn't laid a single mile of usable track, with cost estimates now ballooning to over $200 billion for completion. Meanwhile, California has the highest poverty rate in America when adjusted for cost of living at 17.2%, higher than Mississippi, higher than West Virginia, higher than any red state Gavin loves to mock on Twitter. Under Gavin's leadership, California's budget deficit exploded to $68 billion, forcing him to cut funding for schools and healthcare, while somehow finding money for programs that give free healthcare to illegal immigrants. The state loses over $340 billion per year to illegal immigration costs, according to multiple studies. But Gavin calls anyone who mentions this a racist, rather than addressing the actual financial catastrophe. But there's one policy disaster that Joe specifically called out that made Gavin absolutely panic: the illegal voting scheme. Trump just announced he's sending Department of Justice election monitors to 5 California counties. And Gavin's reaction told you everything you need to know about what's really happening with California's elections. Gavin immediately went on a paranoid rant about intimidation tactics and questioned why these specific counties were chosen. Even though the answer is obvious, these counties have the highest rates of voting irregularities and the lowest rates of voter ID enforcement in America. California is one of only 14 states that doesn't require any ID to vote. And Gavin has fought every single attempt to implement basic election security measures that even European countries consider standard. His state automatically registers people to vote when they get driver's licenses, and California gives driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, creating a system where millions of non-citizens are automatically added to voter rolls. The numbers don't lie, though. California has 1.6 million more registered voters than eligible voting age citizens, according to census data, meaning there are millions of suspicious registrations that nobody is allowed to question. Gavin sued the Trump administration 4 times to prevent citizenship questions on the census and voter registration forms, because apparently asking if someone is legally allowed to vote is somehow voter suppression. His panic about DOJ monitors reveals he knows exactly what would be discovered if anyone actually audited California's election processes with any level of scrutiny. But the most shocking part of this whole saga is what Gavin is doing behind the scenes to salvage his 2028 presidential dreams: the fake redemption arc. Gavin just announced he's releasing a memoir next year where he's going to reveal his difficult childhood and push back against the silver spoon perception that even his own friends have about him. This is straight out of the political consultant playbook. When your authentic self is completely unlikable, manufacture a fake backstory that makes you seem relatable and struggling. His father was the lawyer and advisor to Gordon Getty, one of the richest men in America, and that connection gave Gavin entry into elite San Francisco society and funded his early business ventures that he claims he built himself. He went to a $50,000 per year private high school, grew up in a mansion in Marin County, and had every door opened for him through family connections. But now, he's going to write a book claiming he struggled. Gavin is so desperate to shed his elite image that he's literally rewriting his own history, hoping that a carefully crafted memoir will make people forget about the Getty Mansion photos and private school records that are publicly available. He spent 5 years working on this book, according to his own statement, meaning he's been planning this fake redemption arc since 2020, calculating every word to manipulate public perception for his presidential run. The most insulting part is he's doing this while simultaneously pushing policies that make life harder for actual working-class Californians, raising their taxes and cost of living, while he pretends to be one of them in his book. Joe Rogan sees through all of this manufactured nonsense, which is exactly why he said he'd rather talk to literally anyone else than waste 2 hours listening to Gavin's carefully rehearsed lies and fake authenticity. Gavin Newsom is trying to fail his way up from destroying San Francisco to destroying California, and now wants to destroy the entire country as president in 2028. Joe Rogan just exposed him for the fraud he really is. And now, Democrats are panicking because their golden boy can't handle basic scrutiny from a podcaster. If you want to see more politicians get exposed like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're not stopping until every corrupt career politician gets called out. Drop a comment below telling me which politician you want me to cover next, and I'll see you in the next video.